My phone buzzed at 6:12 a.m. Not a normal ring, but that frantic, relentless vibration like someone kept pressing call again and again. I sat straight up. My heart hit once, then again, heavy as a stone. Unknown number. I answered. Is this Alex Tran? A man's voice raspy rushed. Ma'am, this is Officer Ramirez. We have your mother here. My whole body went cold. Is she okay? She's okay. But we found her trying to start her car outside Maplewood Medical Center. She's insisting she can drive herself home. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles hurt. My other hand drifted to the pillow where I kept the spare key ring. My mom's spare keys. I'd taken them last night, locked them in a drawer, told myself, this is the right thing. And yet this morning, she was still out there, in front of a car, trying to prove something to the world. I swallowed. Officer, her doctor said she can't drive anymore. There was a pause on the other end. Then he lowered his voice, like he was afraid of breaking something fragile. Ma'am, your mom keeps repeating one line. She keeps saying, if I can't drive, I'm already dead. I closed my eyes. That sentence slid under every wall I thought I had. I drove to the hospital. The sky was still gray. Streetlights threw dull yellow pools on empty asphalt. The parking lot felt like ice. And then I saw her. Mom sat on a metal bench outside the ER, her gray cardigan hanging crooked, her hair a little wild like she'd been wrestling the wind. But her eyes, sharp. Sharp enough to tell me she wasn't weak. She was angry. I walked over. Mom! She didn't look at me. She stared straight ahead, like I was just noise in the air. So you came to take the last piece of my freedom too? Her voice was calm, which somehow made it worse. I sat beside her, careful. I came to take you home. That's it. She let out a short, dry laugh. Home? To stare at walls? To wait until you're free to drive me to buy milk? She finally turned to me, eyes red but dry. Do you know what you are in America when you can't drive? I didn't answer. She said each word slowly, clearly, like she was hammering nails into my chest. A burden. I wanted to say, no, you're not a burden. But the words got stuck, because some part of me had been afraid of that for a long time. Officer Ramirez walked up and handed me an envelope. The doctor asked you to read this. I looked down. Mom's name. And in small print, driving restriction immediate. I opened it. White paper, black ink, cold as winter. Due to cognitive and vision assessment results. I didn't even finish the sentence. My stomach dropped. Mom grabbed my wrist stronger than I expected. Give me my keys, she said. Right now. I stared at her. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about driving. This was war. Between keeping my mother safe and keeping my mother, my mother. And I was standing right in the middle. Chapter 2. I just took a wrong turn. 3 months earlier, it had started with a call from a neighbor. I was in a Zoom meeting when Mrs. Peterson lit up my screen. I picked up, thinking she'd complain about Mom's tree dropping leaves again. But her voice trembled. Alex, your mom is at the intersection on Elm Street. She doesn't know how to get home. I shot up so fast my chair scraped the floor. My mother, the woman who'd driven this town for 20 years, who knew every shortcut to Target and Costco, didn't know how to get home? I sped over. Mom was sitting in her car, both hands locked on the steering wheel, lips pressed tight. Her blinker clicked on, for no reason. Behind her, a line of cars honked nonstop. She opened the door, stepped out, and said like it was nothing, "You're overreacting. I just turned the wrong way." I looked at her. Same perfume, same neat jacket, same sharp voice. But her eyes, something was off. Like her focus skipped a beat. I took her to the doctor. Her primary care physician, Dr. Harris, was a middle-aged guy with that gentle American way of speaking. Never "you're wrong," always "how do you feel about?" He checked her vision, her reflexes, had her do memory exercises, repeat words, draw a clock. Mom scoffed. "I'm not a child." Dr. Harris nodded, still calm. "I know, but safety first." At the end, he sat up straight, hands on her chart. His tone stayed polite, but the door closed. "Mrs. Tran, I recommend you stop driving. Effective immediately." The air went thick. Mom stared at him, then at me, like I'd been working with him behind her back. "So one doctor says a few words, and you want to take my license?" she snapped. "Do you have any idea how well I drive?" Dr. Harris exhaled. "It's not about skill, it's about risk. Your reaction time is slower, your vision isn't stable, and your cognitive screening shows changes." Mom stood so fast her chair screeched. "So what now I'm crazy?" Her voice turned sharp, wounded. I stood too, panicked. "Mom, no. That's not—" She cut me off with a look. "You believe him. More than you believe me?" I wanted to say, "I believe you." I wanted to hold her, smooth it over. But I also remembered her frozen in the middle of that intersection, not knowing where she was. I remembered the horns, the stairs, and I remembered something else. Something I'd never said out loud. My dad died in a car accident years ago. A car hit him broadside as he was turning into a parking lot. Since that day, safety hasn't been a word to me. It's been a scar. Mom didn't know that thought was cutting through my mind. She only looked at me, waiting for me to choose her side. And I heard myself say, barely audible, "I think we should listen to the doctor." Mom's face went white, then red. "Fine," she said. "If you want me to be a prisoner, go ahead." She walked out first. I followed, watching her grip her car keys like a life raft. And I didn't know then, the war inside her had just begun. Chapter 3, 4 walls, and one word I hated. After that appointment, I did the thing I swore I'd never do to my mother. I managed her. I installed Uber on her phone, saved her home address, put a sticky note on the fridge. "Call Alex if you need to go anywhere." I even signed her up for the city's senior shuttle. Free, reliable, scheduled. I thought, this will solve it. But to Mom, it was humiliation wrapped in kindness. The day I took her keys, she stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. "I want my keys." I inhaled slowly. "We talked about this, Mom. Dr. Harris." Her hand lifted, cutting the name out of the air. "Do not say his name in this house." I opened the drawer, pulled out the key ring, then shut the drawer again. The little metallic clink sounded like a chain. "I need to pick up my medication," she said. "I'll drive you. This afternoon. This afternoon. What time?" I glanced at my work calendar. "Around 5. Mom let out a humorless laugh. "My prescription runs out at 2. I froze. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I did," she said, staring at me. "But you were busy, so you didn't hear me." I wanted to argue, to list everything I'd been doing, work, bills, kids, errands. But I knew she was partly right. When someone starts losing things, they ask for more help, more often. And the person still standing sometimes can't hear fast enough. Mom took a step closer. Give me my keys. I'll go myself. I don't need to bother you. Mom, no. My voice hardened. I can't let you drive. Mom blinked once. Then her voice dropped. What are you afraid of? I didn't answer. She whispered, Are you afraid I'll die? Or are you afraid I'll embarrass you? That hit like a punch. I remembered Mom driving me to school in snowstorms, pulling over to buy hot chocolate when I was sad, her hands steady on the wheel, sure of herself. Back then, she never asked permission. Now she was standing in front of me, having to ask. Mom turned away, her voice heavy. In your culture, what do you call this? Boundaries? I swallowed. This isn't that. This is safety. She slapped her palm on the kitchen table, bam, so hard the dog barked. Safety? Her eyes burned. Safety is when you still get to live like a person. Do you know how small I feel every time I have to ask you? I'm trying to help you. No, she cut in. You're controlling me. Something stretched tight between us. On one side, love. On the other, fear. And in the middle was the one word I hated most. No. That night, after Mom went upstairs, I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at her keys in my hand. Cold metal. Was I holding her back, or was I holding myself back from reliving another tragedy? Upstairs, her bedroom door closed. A small click, but it sounded to me like the closing of an entire life of freedom. Chapter 4. Uber isn't home. The first week, Mom tried to act normal. She sat at the table, sliced fruit, watched the news. When I called, she answered flat. Yeah, I'm fine. But Mom's fine was a silent house. She used to have her own rhythm. Mondays at the library, Wednesdays at bingo at the community center, Sundays at church. Little conversations in parking lots, quick smiles with strangers. How are you? Things that looked pointless, but were actually the breath of a life. Now everything had to be scheduled. On Thursday, I drove her to church. Mom sat in the passenger seat staring out the window. 10 minutes felt like an hour. When we arrived, her friend Susan smiled brightly. Oh, you're driving your mom now. How sweet. I forced a smile. Mom didn't. She leaned toward me and murmured, They're looking at me like I'm a child. On the way home, she said, Next week I'm driving myself. Mom! No! She shut her eyes, exhaled, swallowing her anger like a pill. So I tried another option. I ordered an Uber to take her to the grocery store. I stood on the porch as the car arrived. The driver was young, friendly. Mom stepped outside holding her bag, but she didn't get in right away. She asked quietly, Who is he? Do you know him? No, Mom. But Uber tracks it. Ratings. GPS. Mom stared at me. So you want me to get into a car with a stranger, but you won't let me drive my own car? I had no answer. She got in. The door shut, click. The car pulled away. I stood there with something hollow inside my chest. 30 minutes later, my phone rang. Alex. Mom's voice was tight. I don't think he knows where he's going. This looks like all the wrong roads. I opened the app. The car was taking a longer route. I called the driver. He apologized. GPS rerouted. But Mom didn't hear an apology. She heard fear. That night, she said, See? Nobody knows the way home like I do. And I realized she wasn't talking about roads. She was talking about belonging. Uber was just a moving box. Driving was, I know where I am. I know who I am. The next day, I tried the city shuttle. A minibus arrived on time. The driver helped Mom step up. Mom looked around. Other seniors, oxygen tanks, walkers. She turned to me, her face sinking. So this is what you want? You want me to become one of them? Mom, I said carefully. You are older. She let out a bitter laugh. Old isn't a number. Old is when other people start deciding for you. That afternoon, she went nowhere. She sat in the living room staring at her car in the driveway. The car was still there, clean, silent, like a horse locked in a stable. And every day, I kept asking myself, if safety makes her fade like this, is it really helping? Chapter 5. People far away always have opinions. Mom didn't just get mad at me. She started recruiting allies. One night while I was washing dishes, my phone lit up. Kevin! My brother. Kevin lived in San Diego. Pool. Good job. Weekend soccer games. The second I heard his voice, I knew Mom had already called him. What are you doing, Alex? He said. Mom called me crying. She said you took her keys. I didn't take them, I snapped. Her doctor said she can't drive. Which doctor? Kevin sighed. A family doctor? Come on. You know Mom. She's been driving for decades. She's never had an accident. You're not here, Kevin. I know, he said. But I know her. She needs freedom. You're just stressing her out. I laughed short, bitter. You're acting like stress is the worst thing, I said. What about a crash? What if she hits someone? What if she... Kevin went quiet. Then his voice softened, like he was talking to a kid. You're reacting because of Dad. I get it. But don't dump your fear on Mom. My blood heated. Don't say Dad like that, I said. Do you remember the day he died? Do you remember what Mom was like after? Kevin didn't answer right away. I heard him breathe. I remember, he said quietly. And that's why I don't want you turning Mom into a prisoner. I stared out the window. Mom's car sat there. The driveway light cast a pale line across the hood. One car, one family, one war. Do you have a plan? I asked, exhausted. Are you flying back every week to take her to Costco, driving her to appointments, taking her to church, picking up her meds? Silence. I already knew the answer. Kevin lived far away, and people far away have the privilege of sounding right. He said softer. Find a gentler way. Don't hurt her. I whispered, mostly to myself. I'm hurting too. He didn't hear me. Or he did and didn't know what to say. When the call ended, Mom texted me one line. I never thought you'd treat me like this. I sat down at the kitchen table, hands wet, eyes burning. I wanted to text back. Mom, I'm doing this because I love you. But in this kind of war, love doesn't always sound like love. Sometimes, love sounds like taking something away. And Mom was looking at me like I was the biggest thief of her life. Chapter 6. The scratch on the rear bumper. I thought I had control. Her keys were locked in a drawer. I kept my spare in my purse. I even changed the garage keypad. And then, Saturday morning, I came to Mom's house. The front door was cracked open. Mom? I called. No answer. I stepped inside. The TV was off. The kitchen was spotless. On the dining table, coffee, still warm. But Mom wasn't there. My heart climbed into my throat. I ran outside. Her car was gone. I stood frozen as the cold wind cut across my skin. I rushed back in, yanked open the drawer. The key ring gone. Impossible. I called Mom. No answer. I called Kevin. Nothing. I called 911, my voice shaking. My mom, she's not allowed to drive, and she just took her car. The dispatcher asked, "Do you suspect theft?" I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. No, I suspect stubbornness. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. "It's me," Mom said, calm. "Don't make a scene." "Mom, where are you?" "Target," she said. "I needed a few things. You act like I'm about to explode." My fingers clenched. "Where did you get the keys?" A pause. Then, light as air, "I have a spare." I went cold. I didn't even know there was one. "Mom, the doctor." "The doctor," she repeated, then scoffed. "But nobody can stop me from living." I drove to Target like my life depended on it. In my head, a crash. Police. An ambulance. Her car was parked at the far end of the lot. Mom was pushing a cart like any normal shopper. Seeing her like that ordinary made me want to cry and scream at the same time. I ran up. "Mom! Are you out of your mind?" She frowned. "That's how you talk to me?" "I was scared." My voice cracked. "I was scared you." She cut me off. "You're scared because you want control. That's all." I pulled her toward the car. Mom climbed into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel like she was gripping her whole identity. "I'm driving home," she said. "No." I opened the driver's door, stood in front of it. "I'm driving." She stared at me. "You want to yank the steering wheel out of my hands in the Target parking lot?" People started looking. I heard cars rolling by, laughter, voices. My face burned. Mom knew exactly what I hated. She won. I got into the passenger seat, hands shaking. She eased out of the spot. Slow. At first, it looked fine. Then at a turn, she stopped longer than normal. She stared at the signs, like they were in another language. "Left," I whispered. She flinched. "I know." But her hands tightened on the wheel. We made it home. I exhaled until I saw it. A long scratch across the rear bumper. I crouched, touched it. Paint peeled away, black plastic showing through. "Mom," my voice went small. "What is this?" She glanced at it, then looked away. "Someone must have hit me," she said. "Parking lots are crowded." I stared at her, and for the first time, I saw something besides anger. Fear. Not fear of crashing. Fear of being exposed. Because somewhere inside, she knew she wasn't the same anymore. That night, after she went upstairs, I stood alone in the driveway staring at her car. A small scratch. But to me, it was a warning. A warning that next time, it might not be paint. Chapter 7. The results Mom hid. Monday morning, I took a half day off. I went to Dr. Harris with the driving restriction letter in my hand. Not to argue, to understand what I was really facing. A nurse brought me back. Dr. Harris walked in holding his iPad, looking tired like someone who's had to say hard truths too many times. "Alex," he said, "I was hoping you'd come." I sat. "She drove to Target. There's a scratch. She says it's nothing. But I don't know." He nodded. "That's why I put it in writing." I swallowed. "Can you just tell me straight what's happening to her?" He watched me for a beat, then pulled his chair closer, voice lower. "Your mother's tests show mild cognitive impairment. It doesn't guarantee Alzheimer's, but it raises the risk. Combined with her vision fluctuations, it makes driving dangerous." The word risk turned my spine to ice. "Does she know?" I asked. He sighed. "I told her. She didn't take it well." I remembered her eyes in that exam room, sharp, offended. "What did she say?" I asked. He glanced at his notes. She said, "If I stop driving, my children will put me away." My breath caught. "Put me away?" I repeated. Dr. Harris looked at me with something like compassion. A lot of seniors fear assisted living. They fear losing control. They fear becoming invisible. I couldn't speak. I flashed back to a commercial on TV nursing home. Mom had said, "That place is just waiting to die." I'd laughed then, thinking she was dramatic. Now I knew it was real. "Is there a driving evaluation?" I asked. "Something that isn't just an immediate ban?" He nodded. "There's an occupational therapist evaluation. But Alex, even if she passes today, this can change quickly." I leaned back. "So what do I do? I don't want to be the villain in my own mother's story." Dr. Harris spoke slowly. "You're not the villain. You're the responsible one. But you will feel like the villain. That's part of it." I let out a dry laugh. "Great." He grew serious. "One more thing. On her last visit, your mother asked me something privately." "What?" He hesitated. Then, she asked, "Doctor, do you think I'm losing my mind?" My chest tightened. My mother, the woman who always had an answer, had asked that question. "What did you say?" I asked, voice unsteady. I told her, "You're not losing your mind. You're noticing changes. And noticing means you can plan." I left the clinic feeling lightheaded. In my hand, test results, resources, phone numbers for a driving evaluation. But the heaviest thing was the question Mom had asked. Am I losing my mind? That evening, I went to Mom's house. She was sitting in the living room. On the coffee table, a small notebook. I stepped closer. A page was open. Her handwriting looked shakier than usual. "If one day I can't remember the way home, what will I do?" I stood there, stunned. Mom heard me and snapped the notebook shut like she was hiding a wound. She looked up, sharp again. "Where were you all day?" I sat across from her, gentle, but not avoiding it anymore. "I went to the doctor," I said. "And I know you're scared." Mom stiffened, blinked fast. "I'm not scared," she said. But her fingers were gripping the edge of her cardigan. I reached out and placed my hand over hers. "Mom, I don't want to put you anywhere. I just want you to stay with me, as long as possible." She looked at me. For the first time, her eyes weren't sharp. They were tired. And inside that tiredness, I saw something heartbreaking. She wasn't only fighting me. She was fighting her own body. Chapter 8. The Road Test. A week later, I convinced Mom to do the driving evaluation. I didn't call it a test. I called it a check so the doctor can stop freaking out. Mom agreed. On one condition. You don't come with me. I don't need you watching me like I'm broken. I nodded. That morning, I drove her to the Occupational Therapy Center, a small building, clean, faint, antiseptic smell. In the waiting room, Mom sat upright, hands on her purse, staring straight ahead. But her foot tapped. A woman came out, smiling warmly. "Hi, Mrs. Tran. I'm Lisa, your driving evaluator." Lisa explained everything in that calm American way. Friendly, clear, no shame, reaction time, sign recognition, situational judgment. Mom nodded, but I knew she heard only one thing. Evaluation. I stood. "I'll wait outside." Mom didn't look at me. I sat in my car, coffee going cold in my hand. Minutes stretched. I thought about Mom driving me to SATs, parking, turning to me, saying, "Breathe. You'll do fine." Now I was the one waiting outside, helpless. 40 minutes later, the door opened. Mom walked out first, fast, eyes forward. Lisa followed, her expression careful. I jumped up. "How'd it go?" Lisa didn't answer right away. She handed me a sheet. Boxes checked. Delayed reaction at intersections? Missed pedestrians in peripheral vision. Hesitation with lane changes. My stomach sank. Mom stood beside me, face like stone. Lisa spoke gently. "Mrs. Tran, you did many things well, but there were safety concerns. I can't recommend unrestricted driving." Mom let out a sharp laugh. "I knew it! You decided before I even got in the car." Lisa shook her head. "No, this is about safety. You can still be independent, just maybe not behind the wheel." Mom turned to me. "Happy now? You win." I wanted to say, I never wanted to win, but all I managed was, "Mom, I'm sorry." Mom shut her eyes for a beat, then opened them and looked at me like I was someone she didn't recognize. "Sorry doesn't give me my youth back," she said. We drove home in silence. In the driveway, Mom didn't get out right away. She stared at her car like she was staring at a friend about to be taken away. "I want to keep it," she said. "Mom, if you keep it, you'll drive again." I said, no more dodging. She stared at me. "You think I can't control myself?" I answered the truth, painful, honest. "I think when you panic, you'll do whatever it takes to feel normal again. And I don't blame you." Mom's lips tightened. Her eyes flickered like she was holding back tears. I took a breath. "We sell the car. We use that money to hire a private driver. Same driver, someone you know. You choose where you want to go. I'll help schedule it, but you're still deciding." Mom looked at me for a long time. Then she asked, so quietly I almost missed it, "If I agree, will you promise you won't put me in a nursing home?" That question sliced right through me. I took her hand. "I promise. I won't do anything behind your back. We decide together." Mom nodded, barely. Then, like someone surrendering after a long battle, she opened her purse, pulled out the spare key ring. She placed it in my palm. Cold metal against my skin. She said, "Take it, before I change my mind." I wanted to hug her, but she turned her face to the window, and I heard her breathing, broken, like she was swallowing a sob. In that silence, I understood. Mom had handed me the keys, but she'd also handed me the weight of an entire life. Chapter 9. The day the car left. Selling the car sounded simple, but the day it actually left the driveway, it felt like a small funeral. We listed it online. A man came to see it, said it was well kept. Mom stood off to the side, arms crossed, face blank. The man asked, "Anything wrong with it?" I was about to say, "No." Mom spoke first, sharp as glass. "The car isn't broken. The driver is." The air froze. The man chuckled awkwardly. Okay." I looked at Mom. "Mom?" She turned away like she hadn't said anything. On signing day, I took her to the DMV to update her license status. Not revoked, just restricted. But to Mom, it was still a stamp that said, "You're not who you used to be." In the DMV waiting area, numbers echoed overhead. Mom stared at the form. "Sign here," I said softly, pointing. Mom stared at her signature like she was looking at something disappearing. "I want to sign," she said, "but I hate that I have to." When it was our turn, The DMV clerk looked at the paperwork and said normally, "We'll update your record. You can drive again with clearance." Mom gave a small, bitter smile. "I'm not driving again." The clerk looked up, surprised. "Are you sure?" Mom looked straight ahead, calm. "Yes, I'm sure." I turned to her. In that moment, she looked strong, but not the kind of strong that wins. The kind of strong that accepts. That afternoon, the buyer came back, transferred the money, signed the papers, then started the engine. The sound of the car in our driveway made Mom flinch. She stepped onto the porch and watched. The car rolled out slowly. When it turned the corner and disappeared, Mom still didn't move. I stepped close, touched her shoulder. "Mom." She didn't turn. Her voice was small, hoarse. "When your dad died, I still drove. I still had to take you to school. I still had to go to work." My breath caught. She kept going, like she was talking to herself. I thought, as long as I could still drive, I could keep something, a piece of the old life. I swallowed my tears. "I know." She turned to me, eyes wet but stubborn. "Do you know what's funny? I'm angry at you, because you're like me." I froze. "I was the one who took your dad's keys," she said. "Before the accident, he almost fell asleep at the wheel once. I hid his keys, made him rest. He was furious for a week." I stared at her like I'd just been handed a secret. "I did it because I loved him," she said. "And I hate being in your dad's position now." "I don't want you in that position," I whispered. Mom gave a sad little smile. "But I am." That night, Kevin FaceTimed. This time he didn't argue. He just looked at Mom and said, "Mom, I'm coming next month. We'll figure it out." Mom nodded. "Come if you want. Just don't come to pity me." Kevin swallowed. "I'm not pitying you. I miss you." Silence. Mom stared at the screen a long time. Her mouth trembled. Then she said, "I miss you too." After the call, Mom walked to a cabinet and pulled out a small box. Inside was an old car key, its teeth cut off. Just the plastic head left. She set it on the table like a keepsake. "I'm keeping this," she said. "Not to drive. Just to remember, I used to be free." I nodded. Mom didn't need me to say, "Everything will be okay." She just needed me to sit here beside her in the empty space after the car was gone. That space had no engine, but it had family. And it had a real sadness that we were finally brave enough to face. Chapter 10. A different kind of freedom. 2 months later, I didn't hide keys under my pillow anymore. Mom's house was still Mom's house. Just one thing changed. The driveway was empty. Instead, every Tuesday and Friday, a silver sedan pulled up. The driver was Mr. Jordan, about 60, cheerful, always asking Mom, "Where to today, ma'am?" At first, Mom hated it. She sat in the back seat, silent, like she was being transported. But Mr. Jordan had a strange gift. He didn't treat Mom like someone who needed help. He treated her like she mattered. He opened the door and waited. "Take your time. No rush." He remembered she liked Starbucks lattes with no sugar. He remembered she hated country music. Slowly, Mom started talking. One day I came over and found her, putting on makeup. I stood in the doorway, stunned. "Mom, where are you going?" She looked at me through the mirror. "Art class." "Art class," I repeated. "At the community center," she said. "Susan invited me." I smiled. "You like painting?" Mom gave me a look. "I like a lot of things. I just spent years driving everyone else around." That line hit me like a soft punch, because I realized the steering wheel wasn't only her freedom, it was her burden. That night she told me about classwomen laughing, swapping watercolor tips, nobody talking about illness. They talked about flowers, weather, old movies. Her eyes brightened. I painted a tree. It was ugly, but it was fun. I watched her, and for a moment, my chest felt lighter. Then one afternoon, Mom called me, voice trembling. Alex, I can't remember where I put my phone. My heart tried to sprint. I rushed over. Mom stood in the middle of the living room, confused like she was lost in her own home. I found the phone. In the refrigerator. I stood there holding cold glass and cold plastic, not breathing. Mom stared at me. Don't look at me like that. I put the phone in her hand. I'm just scared. Mom sat down. Silence. Then, barely above a whisper, I'm scared too. I sat beside her. Our shoulders touched. Mom said softly, that day at the hospital, I said, if I can't drive, I'm dead. I said that because I thought, when I stop driving, you'll stop seeing me as your mom. I turned to her. I'll never stop. Mom looked at me a long time. Then her tears fell, real tears, the first I'd seen in years. She said, thank you for hating me enough to keep me here. I laughed through my own tears. I don't hate you. Mom nodded. I know, but back then, I needed a bad guy, someone to blame, so I didn't have to blame myself changing. I squeezed her hand. Outside, the sky darkened. The streetlights clicked on. No engine in the driveway. But a knock at the door. Mr. Jordan arrived right on time, tapping gently. Mom wiped her face, stood, inhaled like she was gathering herself. Then she looked at me and said like she was reminding herself, too. Let's go. I watched her walk to the door, slow, but steady. And I finally understood. Freedom isn't only in a steering wheel. Sometimes freedom is admitting you need people without losing your dignity. The silver sedan rolled away, taking Mom to art class. I stood on the porch watching it go, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was stealing something. I felt like I was protecting a life. And in that protection, I learned the hardest lesson. Loving someone as they grow older means letting go of who you want them to be, so you can hold on to who they still are.